Good morning. I'm always pleased to introduce this near-death speaker, Sharon Milliman, and her husband Gary. She's going to be the speaker. Come to us from Parkersburg, West Virginia, way over on the other side on the Ohio River, looking over to Ohio. So they had quite a trek getting over here Friday. Sharon is part of a new group of wonderful women that I think are that are coming out. Maybe that they've been out a long time, because we've had PMA Chat Water and we've had a number of wonderful, spiritually dynamic women who have talked about their near-death experiences. But there's a new crop coming out, and Sharon, I think, is part of that crop, if I may, part of that group. In June, we've scheduled Peggy Robinson, who will be here, and she's also a part of that group. And Sharon and Peggy were both on Oz here a couple of months back, talking about their near-death experiences. Sharon's been on a number of national programs and talk shows, and she talks a lot at churches and groups like this. Sharon has had 4 near-death experiences, and we find that's not so unusual, because once you've pierced that veil, so to speak, once you've gone over to the other side, it's easier and easier to make that trip again. And so we find people who pierced that veil the first time go back again and again. And some of us do it in deep meditation, and some people do it in prayer, and some people do it, yes, in meditation. But near-death experiences, it usually is that trigger that gets you across the veil. So Sharon, with her 4 near-death experiences, has a wonderful story to tell. Now let's bring her forth.
Thank you all for having me. It's such an honor to be here to talk to you all. I have had 4 near-death experiences, and the first one happened when I was 13. I drowned in a pool while taking swimming lessons, and the light, as I'm laying under the 10-foot section of the pool, the light came. And it was the most beautiful light. It was soft and beautiful. And so that was the first experience, when in 2005 I was struck by lightning. Actually 4 times, but it was the 4th time that I died. And I went to heaven, and I saw my 2 brothers who had died as babies, and they were fully grown men, and they greeted me. And I met Jesus, and Jesus took me to a grove of trees. He came out of the grove of trees, but he took me to a wooded glen, and that's where God was. And we sat on a log, and we had a nice, long, lengthy conversation. And so that was the second one. The third one, I died while having emergency surgery. And I went right back to heaven, and I saw all the same things that I saw the second time. And there were 2 men that I knew. One of them, it was the son of a friend of mine who had died years ago, and accompanied with him was his father. And I didn't know until after I got back to my room that the father had died while I was in surgery. And so I was able to tell the wife that the son and him were together, and they had gone into the city. And there was also a little puppy there. So our beloved animals do go to heaven. And this puppy had been killed by a neighbor of my daughter, and I didn't know anything about it. And so I was able to tell her that the puppy was perfect and beautiful and happy, and so our pets go to heaven. And then my fourth one happened a year ago in December, and I was hospitalized for seizures, and I had an adverse reaction to some medication, and I quit breathing. And that experience was a little bit different than the others, but when people talk about going into the void, it's not a scary place, and God is always there with you. And it was just a time of rest and deep love and healing for me. And so there's no need to fear any of those. It was because there's so much love and so much beauty, and I've found that death is seamless. It's nothing more than going from one room in your house to another, and the beauty and the love that comes from God, and there's no words to describe it. And I was just so filled with love, and like I've never been felt before. And a couple of the things that I learned from these experiences is that God loves each one of us as if we were the only one He ever created. And even though we might be very tiny in the grand scheme of the whole entire universe and other universes and beyond that, we are so important to all of God's creation. And I've told people this before, if you stop and think about it, God thinks about you every single moment of every single day. And if He didn't love you that much, and He didn't think about you, you would just cease to exist as if you never were. But He loves each and every one of us so much that, you're always on His mind every single second. And another thing that I learned is that there's no judgment on the other side. God does not judge you, only loves you. And I had a life review, so I saw my life from the moment I was born until the moment I died. And there was no judgment, only love, just pure love and acceptance. And I didn't judge me either, so there's no judgment. And I thought something was missing, when I saw my life review, and I thought, wow, that was interesting. Something's missing. What is it? What we all think is that there's judgment and condemnation and all of that, and that's not the case. You're just totally loved. So there's another thing that I learned, and that is that it's the small things. It's the little things that we do. And if we do it with love, it doesn't matter whether you're taking out the trash or cooking dinner for your family or picking up cigarette butts on the side of the road. It doesn't matter what you do. If you do it with love, that is so huge, so huge. And that's the kind of things that you see in a life review. It's the hand on the shoulder for someone who needs it, giving money to the poor person that's standing on the street. You don't know who they are. It's listening to someone who needs to be, just needs a friend. It's those little things. Sharing your toys when you were little. Those things are what's the most important thing, and those are huge to God. And it's helping one person at a time. Like you walk outside and you smile at someone, that smile can travel around the world in one day. And the lives that you touch, it's enormous, it's huge. And you may not think that you're touching lives, but you're touching lives all over. You're moving mountains, and you are changing the world. Even if you don't think you are, you really are, because that's what's important to God. And that's what you'll see in your life review. And it's just doesn't matter what you do it with love, and you're going to be just fine. And the beauty on the other side, that love on the other side, the acceptance, and it was huge, absolutely huge. And it changed my life completely. When I came back, I was not the same person. And I try to see people the way God does, because He doesn't see the outer. He sees what's in here. And what's in here is, He sees you as perfect. He doesn't see humanly flaws and things like that, because He made you, and He knows you, and He knows your heart. And that's what's so important. He's the healer of hearts. He's the reader of hearts. And He doesn't see, He loves us, even though we are imperfect beings. He loves us perfectly, and He sees us that way. And that was huge for me, because I grew up, my parents were wonderful to me, but as I was going out into the world taught me that I was not pretty, I was too heavy, no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. People wanted more. And God was teaching me that He doesn't see us that way. And His love made me feel perfect. It made me feel accepted and cherished for the first time in my life. And when you get struck by lightning 4 times, God's saying, listen, I'm talking to you and you're not listening, so guess what? He brought me to Him face to face to tell me He doesn't make junk, He doesn't make mistakes. And He made you, and you're here because of His love. And He is with you every single moment of every single day. And you're never alone, ever. He's always there. So that's what I wanted to share with you.